Podcast.Ph can be downloaded for free on iTunes by typing Podcast.Ph programs. You can also listen on Podomatic, Spreaker, Stitcher, Clamor, YouTube, and our official URL, Podcast.Ph. Like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Google+. Podcast.Ph, the most active and fastest growing podcast network in the Philippines.
Can you adjust the frequency and volume a bit?
Startups, originators, musika, kultura, the arts, politika, sports, news, technology, crime, tragedy, comedy, lahat ng makabuluhan.
We are your independent podcast content creator, straight from the Philippine Islands. Mabuhay, mabuhay.
You're listening to Podcast.Ph.
Welcome to the nth episode of Original Ideas here on Podcast.Ph. My name is Martin Andanar. Today we will do something new. We haven't done this before, but this is going to be great. We're live streaming from Manila, and we're talking to one of the guys who are crazy about podcasting in Chicago. And they have a new website. It's called jockandnerd.com. In fact, they've just released their 11th episode. I'd like to introduce to you Anthony Kryzyzak. Did I pronounce your name correctly, sir?
You did correctly, Martin. Thank you for thanks for having me on the show. It's an honor.
It's my pleasure. And Anthony Kryzyzak is one of the hosts of jockandnerd.com. You got to listen to the podcast. It's funny. They talk about different stories about games and technology, etc. But I want to hear it from the horse's mouth himself to talk about the jockandnerd.com or Jock and Nerd, the podcast. Anthony, so welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me again. And jockandnerd.com. We launched in late March of this year, and we released our 11th episode today. Jockandnerd.com. I am actually the jock, and I have a co-host who is the nerd, and we just go back and forth, and we talk about. We're mostly focused on like comic book TV shows, movies, anything related to like geek culture, although we kind of dive into other topics as well. Mm-hmm. If you listen to the show, we'll talk about the health benefits to dark chocolate, or whatever really comes to mind is what we talk about. Mm-hmm. Movies like Avengers Age of Ultron, we just released a podcast about that, so that's kind of what you're looking for. If you're looking for that kind of stuff, then our podcast is definitely for you.
And when did you decide to set up the podcast with the nerd?
The nerd's name is Imran.
Imran,
Me and Imran, we actually started. I think we started in March of this year. We had a pretty quick turnaround. I basically one day was at work and I said to him, "Hey, we should do a podcast. We have awesome conversations and we both know a lot of stuff about these movies and TV shows. We should do something." And then within 2 weeks, he had everything set up and we were ready to go and recorded our first episode. So,
yeah, I'm checking out your website right now, and this looks really cool, man. This looks really professional and looks like you've been podcasting for years. Who created the website? Who recorded the stingers, etc.?
So that's actually all Imran. So Imran, being the nerd, he kind of just dove into it, and he made he does website graphic design. He draws. He's creative. So he's the kind of the mastermind behind all the creativity on that website and making it look so professional. He set up everything. I contributed with ideas and I contributed a lot financially, but he's the master of making things look pretty. So that's how that came to be.
And how do you record the podcast? You stay in your home where you are right now, and Imran stays where he is?
Normally, actually, I go to his studio and we'll go in. We have a 2 or 3 mics set up, and we'll go in studio, and I'll be there. But we've just recently set up where I can actually be at home and he can be at his place, and we can do it over Skype or like Google Hangouts or something like that. So we have the capability of doing that. We've actually just had a guest on recently too, so we're able to have guests now on our podcast. It's actually nice. Evolving pretty quickly.
All right, for those who are listening here on Podcast.Ph, we're streaming live from Manila. We're talking to Anthony in Chicago, and both of us, we sound like we're in the same studio, primarily because we're using audio interface or consoles that make us sound good, and also a microphone. Tell me what you're using there.
You know what? This microphone is... I'm not exactly sure. It's about $60 though, and Imran ordered it, and I'm using it, and apparently it does make me sound like I'm right next to you. Because we tested it out prior to me being on the show, and he said I sounded really, really good. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, you sound like you're inside a studio. I interviewed my brother in Melbourne. This was a few months back for different original ideas about music in Melbourne, and it sounded just like the same. That he was like in the same studio, and people were asking us what we are using, what kind of connection we're using, and lo and behold, we're just using Skype.
Yeah, right. It's the power. It's the power of the internet and technology. The future is now, man.
All right. So now that you have the podcast running, 11th episode, and you guys sound great. I've listened to a couple of your shows. Tell us what inspired you to get into this. And I understand. I'm checking your LinkedIn right now, Anthony, and you are an account executive at the Chicago Wolves. Wow.
Okay. Well, I mean, I started getting into a little bit of my story. I wasn't always like into like geek stuff. I was more of the jock that like played sports and just watched sports and wanted to be involved in that. So obviously my role now, I'm in sports. I'm actually, Chicago Wolves are a hockey team here in Chicago. But then I started watching all like the movies, like the Marvel movies, like Spider-Man, Incredible Hulk, Batman, all those movies, and I started getting into like comics, and I would have these discussions with people about geek culture, comics, movies, all that. And I would write. I used to write for a blog that is no longer up. But I used to write, but I didn't like writing as much just because I don't know. Whenever I wrote, I needed an editor because I'm not the greatest with making things sound great when it's on paper. But talking is right up my alley. So
yeah,
I figured, I'd rather just talk, and found out, this whole podcasting thing was around, and just needed to hook up with the right person to get something going. So.
Yeah, you actually sound like you're a professional broadcaster. It's really in your alley, Anthony. For those who are listening, our Filipino audience, Anthony Kryzyzak is, by the way, half Filipino.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Half Filipino and half Polish.
And half Polish.
I believe you would call that a mestizo, right?
Mestizo, that's right. And your mom is from Tondo, Manila.
That's correct.
You've never been to Manila, or have you been here even once?
Only one time when I was 2 years old, so for me that doesn't really count because I don't remember it at all. So I technically once, but for my memory, never been.
Well, it's great to hear.
I would love to come though. I would love to be there.
Well, you have to now that you've touched base with a podcaster from Manila who can tour you around, and I'm sure you have a lot of relatives here in Manila. And I've talked to Parviz of Clamor, and
we actually just recently had him on the show, and we'll release that episode on Wednesday on jockandnerd.com.
Another question. What are your plans for the Jock and Nerd, your 11th episode? How is it coming along?
It's been coming along great. It's kind of been an evolution. We've been learning as we go. Excuse me, but originally we just did shows, and we would review shows such as like Arrow and The Flash. I'm not sure if you have those in the Philippines. But we've been reviewing shows, and then we started doing like special podcasts on movies, and now we've been diving into having guests such as Parviz, where we interviewed him and kind of helped him out a little bit. So I just think as it grows, we'll just keep delving into other topics. I don't think we'll be as niche as we go along. I think we'll start having a lot more guests on and just kind of a little more free reign to just talk about things and life and different topics. So the sky's the limit. I don't see any cap to what we're talking about.
That's correct. Well, catch jockandnerd.com. Of course, the Jock and Nerd podcast can be downloaded on iTunes. You can listen to them at Stitcher, right?
Stitcher, yeah. Stitcher, iTunes. We're also on TuneIn Radio, Player FM, or if you just want to go to the website and stream it there, we can do it there too.
Yes, and you're also present in Clamor.
We're also on Clamor, too. We have our own channel on Clamor. We're on Twitter, Jock and Nerd Cast, Facebook. You can look us up on Facebook. So there's a bunch of ways to find us.
You're in every platform imaginable.
Trying to be.
So go and email them at show@jockandnerd.com. Thank you so much for your time, Anthony.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Martin.
This Podcast.Ph presentation is supported by Martin Andanar's Homecast Studio and Audio.Ph.
It's like a raccoon put on the Daredevil mask.
It's like fucking Rocket wearing a Daredevil Halloween costume. Oh my god! And that's me. I look like Rocket,
the human
dressed
raccoon.
up as Daredevil for Halloween.
God damn, you're really not.